Hi folks, so today what I'm going to talk about here is insulin and how it works with your body and your blood sugar. One of the things that's important to know when we talk about this is both type 1 and type 2 diabetics can develop insulin resistance. The main difference between a type 1 diabetic and a type 2 diabetic is the type 1 diabetic can no longer create insulin. And so it has to be injected or used with a pump to get that insulin into the body. But the thing is about that, the body can still get to be resistant to it, especially if they're doing something like this. So one of the important things to know is if the red symbolizes blood sugar, as your blood sugar comes up, your body would naturally release insulin and bring that blood sugar back down. So this is a somewhat normal approach to the body regulating sugar. So people nowadays will be using insulin pumps and sensors, and pretty soon those two devices are going to be completely integrated. And it sounds like a great thing, but in a way it's not, because it will continue to give you more insulin. So if the trend is that we're now needing bigger amounts of insulin to accomplish the same objective, now what we're doing is we are developing insulin resistance. So I saw a person today, and one of the things I asked him about was how much insulin is he using. And so his trend was he went from using 82 to 94 units a day. So he's needing more insulin to do the same thing. The objective is the same. His objective is to keep his blood sugar in the normal range, but it's taking more insulin to accomplish the same thing. That's insulin resistance. So whether you're a type 1 or a type 2 diabetic, if you need more insulin to accomplish the same objective, then you are in a more rapid accelerating disease state. Because everybody focuses on this. Everybody thinks this is what does all the damage in the body. High blood sugar, high blood sugar, high blood sugar. No one ever says, what does high insulin do? Well, high insulin is very destructive. High insulin is a very anabolic hormone. So if we took a person and gave them an IV drip of insulin, the vessel that insulin goes into would close up, because insulin causes growth of the endothelial lining inside the vessels. So it causes the vessel to actually grow closed. So high insulin is damaging too. So if it says, oh, well, so the idea that you could just take more insulin and more insulin just to get this result is wrong. What you want is something more like the minimum effective dose. So minimum effective dose is going to look totally different than that. So if we could get our insulin levels down as a type 1 diabetic as well, then this is going to be good. So we're eating, we have our sugar. So there's your 3 meals during the day. If we could take just enough insulin to get everything down, if with this space under the graph is smaller, this is health. This is equilibrium. Unfortunately, it is not looked at like this. And so what happens is you'll find diabetics needing more and more and more insulin to accomplish the same objective. This is a sickness and a disease state that's being accelerated by improper management. So part of the way you fix this in non-diabetics, first off, is if they're only eating 3 meals a day, we need less insulin. we've been told for most diabetic management that they should have snacks multiple times per day. Well, guess what happens? Every time we snack, we need more and more insulin. Look at the space underneath the graph. We're needing more. And here's the thing. This was done to make regulating their medicine better instead of regulating their health. So what we need to do is look at this in much the same way as we would a type 2 diabetic and start knocking out some of these. Eating less often, eating less starches and carbohydrates, focusing on things that don't have as much of a massive impact on blood sugar will lead us to a better equilibrium and a healthier result. Because every time the body and insulin's being called up or being delivered, the potential for sickness goes up. This is when you're getting these wild fluctuations, these high highs, and these low lows. So a person's on this roller coaster ride where their sugar is going, to 400 and then down to 50. This is bad news. And then insulin is taking the ride with it. And then eventually what you're going to see is your base level insulin, your basal insulin level is going to have to be higher. So this is just us walking right off the dock, right straight out into sickness. So this is definitely not what we want. We need to control this with how we eat and what we eat. And this is the big problem because modern, quote-unquote, modern management of diabetics is still recommending 8 to 12, 8 to 10, 8 to 10 servings of carbs a day, which is too many carbs. So if you have a disease that's affected by carbohydrate metabolism, then you have to watch your carbohydrates. So a high carb, this is still what most of them are on, low fat diet. When in fact, a low carb, higher fat diet makes a lot more sense. And it's generally not done. But when you start to do it, all of a sudden these people need way less insulin. And you go, wow, they need way less insulin. Why? Because the way certain things affect your body are different. So if you eat carbohydrates, it does like this. And then if you eat fats, it does like this. And then if you eat proteins, it does more like this. So which one's going to require more insulin to manage? The carbohydrates right here. The fats take almost no insulin, minimal. And then this one will be moderate. And this one will be high. And so one of the things I ask diabetics to do is make a naughty and a nice list. What foods really send your your sugar levels rocketing up? Let's start to avoid those. What foods can you eat and they have minimal impact on your blood sugar? Let's focus on eating those. Because then we're going to need less insulin. If your sugar goes rocketing up like this, you need more insulin. If your sugar is pretty flatline, pretty stable, you need much less. So this is basic insulin metabolism. This is how it works. This is actually, believe it or not, kind of a controversial way of looking at this. But it comes from just knowing the mechanics of how it works and getting us out of the dogma that we've been in for so long that says you have to have 5 meals, 3 snacks, and all of these starches and carbs every day. You really don't need it. You just have to transition, which means when you go and do this and you're a type 1 diabetic, you need less insulin per day. So if you keep taking the same amount of insulin, your blood sugar, you're gonna start to show lows. When you start doing this right, you're gonna find out, wow, my morning glucose monitor only said I was 101. So you're starting to get more sensitivity to the insulin rather than the resistance that comes when you need multiple boluses of insulin per day and a high base insulin level. So this is the kind of stuff that my group is really about. This is metabolic programming. This is what this means. It means we're programming your metabolism with specific inputs to have a direct outcome on what happens. And when you do it wrong, which a lot of people are, and it's not their fault because they've been told to do it wrong, but when you do it wrong, you have different outputs than when you do it right. So we can see that there's a direct effect on what your body does based on the input. So I like to say food isn't just nutrition, it's information or it's instructions. So when you have food, at certain times and certain things, it's giving your body instructions on what to do. So eating the wrong things multiple times per day or eating the wrong thing at the wrong time can have an impact on how your body responds. Pretty simple stuff when you break it down like this, but the problem is that a lot of people really aren't breaking it down like this, and they're stuck in their way of doing things. And so year after year, they're finding they need more insulin, more other drugs. They're becoming more brittle as a diabetic. It's because their inputs, their programs that they're writing, the information that they're giving to their body, and the instructions that they're giving their body based on their diet, their sleep cycles, and all of these other things are incorrect. And it can all be helped. A type 1 diabetic is probably 99 times out of 100 not coming off insulin. But a type 2 diabetic probably can, unless they're completely broken by taking insulin for too long. Type 2 diabetics shouldn't get insulin. I mean, I'm adamant about that. If this is managed right, you don't need to put them on insulin, but you have to stay on them and make sure that they're doing the right things. Once you get them on insulin, their body may quit. Their body may stop making its own insulin. And so a type 2 diabetic that's on insulin will need a test called the C-peptide test to see how much insulin their body is actually making. Provided they're still making insulin, there's still hope you'll get them off of their insulin and then off of all of their anti-diabetic agents when you do this properly. But for a type 1, it's not going to happen. They're going to need to use insulin, but we want to get their insulin levels down as much as possible. So this same fellow, I was asking him, I said, when was the last time you remember, using much less? And he goes, I was younger, I was in shape, whatever. But he had gained weight over time, and that caused this to go up. Like you're starting to use more and more. That's classic insulin resistance. So that's it. Like and share. Promote these videos to people that you know, whether they're diabetic or not. Like I say, on just about every video, there's 100 million people, 1 in 3 basically, that are either pre-diabetic or diabetic, and they're not even aware of it. So when we run blood tests, especially the fasting insulin test, this is where we uncover this. And we go, hey, look, we are trying to be proactive. You're not quite diabetic right this second, but you are going to be diabetic based on these markers. If your fasting insulin is high, that's the canary in the coal mine that's saying you're going to become diabetic. So we need to watch out for that. That's an important marker for us to look at. And if your doctor won't order it, tell me and I'll order it, because I think it's that important. It should be part of every workup, in my opinion. Every time you get your blood sugar checked and your HbA1c, get your insulin, your fasting insulin levels checked. It's an inexpensive test. It gives a wealth of information, and we just want it to be under 5. I want that number to be under 5. So if your fasting insulin is 10, 12, That's insulin resistance. I don't care what your blood sugar is at that moment, and I don't even care what your HbA1c number is at that moment. If your fasting insulin is high, you're developing insulin resistance. You will have a problem. It might occur 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years down the road, but it's still gonna happen. And if you act now, before that actually happens, before damage begins to occur, it's much easier to fix. And you don't have to deal with all this stuff that everybody has to deal with. So that's it. Like and share. Look for more videos. Also, too, we have videos on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. Please go there, like and subscribe to that, because that improves my reach. The way that all of this works now is it's all algorithms. So the more people who subscribe, the more people get to see the videos. And that is good because we could save somebody's life. Also, there's some other videos that I put on this site. Be sure to watch everything. Ask questions, comments. I'm looking to help people and answer your questions. There are no dumb questions. The only dumb questions are the ones you don't ask, because then I can't answer them for you. Okay? That's it. Have a good one. Bye-bye.